My Lords, I rise first of all to thank the Noble Lady Baroness Blister for bringing this regret remote motion and to very much echo the Noble Lady's call that absolutely these regulations should be withdrawn. They are unacceptable. And I think it's useful to put this in the context of oral questions earlier today. There we heard Lord Ahmed of Wimbledon speaking for the government about its plans for the Council of Europe summit in Reykjavik coming up. And the Noble Lord said this is an opportunity for member states to review their commitment to human rights, democracy and the rule of law. Yet here we are debating regulations that clearly fail to meet basic standards of human rights. Basic standards are being denied to people in the UK. And that is horrifying in its own moral terms, but if we also think about the state of the world now and the role that the UK government says it wishes to play in it, that is definitely going to damage our status in the rest of the world and our ability to have impact in the rest of the world. Now, I think it is worth noting that it might be said to be it's some of the usual suspects here in your Lordship's House saying these things, but we are reflecting the conclusions of the Secondary Legislation Scrutiny Committee, that these regulations remove important safeguards, reduce the standards, including for children and vulnerable adults, and that the government has not provided adequate policy justification for or consulted on these changes, and that this was brought in while the House was in recess. There's blows everywhere there to democracy, the rule of law, all the things that the government says that it's standing up for. Now, I just wanted to briefly reflect, drawing on a report written by Amelia Gentleman in The Guardian last month, about what actually was happening at Manston and what is now being apparently regularised. And the journalist quoted a Home Office employee who said what was happening in Manston, quote, had gone well beyond what was ethical and humane. To continue the quote, there were people who'd been sleeping on a mat on the floor of a marquee for 20 days. Some families had been shut inside tents without access to fresh air for 7 days. This is just unacceptable, and one of the other issues was that private security contractors, a particular concern where you see removal of democratic oversight through that outsourcing privatisation, a company that usually does security for festivals and shopping centres suddenly had staff clearly not trained for the practices to deal with a very difficult situation. So there's a lot to say, but we only have a limited amount of time. So I really just want to focus on a couple of issues. There is much broader issues around immigration, detention, and the fact that the UK is one of the very few countries in the world that locks up for an indeterminate period, sometimes for years, people who've not even been accused of any crime. But can I ask the Noble Lord the Minister directly, under the RHR regulations we're debating here now, why is there no maximum legal time limit as there is to an STHF? And will the government commit to introducing a time limit? And the other questions is, what kind of system have we now arrived at? Will the Minister confirm that the current changes will see a dramatic change in the amount and form of detention being used in the UK in the coming months and years? Is the Minister concerned about increasing breaches of human rights, in particular, in the right to be protected from arbitrary detention and torture and inhumane and degrading treatment?